great trail ride to Swamp Lake last weekend, but on the way back we stopped to play on some rocks and I had a little issue. So let me show you the clip of what happened.
Nice.
After the crash, I quickly realized I had a problem with the throttle. The bar end had smashed into the throttle tube and that would not allow the throttle tube to turn. It was an easy fix, just loosen up the bar end and I was back in business. But then about 200 yards down the trail, I had another issue, and I might as well show you that clip as well. The throttle stuck and started to rev higher and higher on its own. I was going to try to ride it out just over the top of that last little rock. Kind of got my weight back and the Montesa looped out instantly, and then you can hear it just rev up and scream. At that point I thought I might have messed up the throttle housing in the crash, so I took that all apart right on the trail side, took the throttle tube off, cleaned out the throttle housing, everything was fine. But playing with the actual throttle cable with a pair of pliers, you could tell that the slider and the carburetor was kind of sticking. Well, I either thought it was a slider or the throttle cable. So kind of put it back together and it was kind of working okay. I figured I'd be able to ride out and get back to the truck. And in riding back to the truck, it was kind of like I had cruise control on. It just, if I let off the throttle, it would just kind of hang there for a little bit and then shut down. So I just had to be really careful riding back to the truck. So once I got home and started taking the Montesa apart to kind of look at the carburetor, because I figured it was either the throttle cable or the slider, I found out that I had some dust in the airbox. I couldn't see where the dirt was getting in, so I'm thinking it had to come through the air filter even though it was oiled up. And this was only my second ride on that air cleaner. Everything looked good, so I figured the dirt had to be getting through the air cleaner. That's kind of what I'm thinking. But there was a lot of dirt in the carburetor. The reed side of the slider was super tacky and dirty and just all gummed up, and I think it was the actual slider that was sticking. And the inside of the carburetor has a lot of dirt built up in it. And it was only my second ride since I had cleaned the carburetor. The bike had sat for a couple of months. So a couple weeks ago when I went riding, I started it up. I was going to load it up in the truck. It wasn't running quite right. So I just took it down the driveway and gave it a little blip of the throttle, and it revved up on its own just to about wide open, and I instantly looped out in the driveway. So with that, I took the carburetor apart, cleaned it up. It was just a little dirty because I think it was from sitting all summer. So then this was my second ride on it after cleaning the carb, but this time there was a whole bunch of dirt in the carb. I picked up a carburetor rebuild kit, so we're going to take the carb off, clean it up, do a quick little rebuild on it, then put the bike back together and see how it runs. Hopefully the throttle doesn't stick again. This is the reed side of the slider. I took it apart a couple days ago and you can see how dirty it is. And at that time when I took it apart, it was just sticky to touch. I've never had a carburetor do that before. This is the last clamp I need to undo to get the carburetor out, and then I'll try to show you how dirty the inside of the carb is. There we go. I don't know if you can tell, Can you see in there and see how dirty that is? It's filthy in there. That is so bad for the motor. That'll wear those rings out in that cylinder really quick. So hopefully I didn't do too much damage to that motor. Alright, first thing I like to do when taking a carburetor apart is write down how many turns in these screws are, so that when we put it back together we know how many turns out to come. One, two, three, four. This all the way out. That one's 4. Take apart the choke. Doesn't look too bad. So there's an O-ring on there that will change. Now there's a little screen in here for a fuel filter, so we'll see how that looks. A little bit of junk in there. So we'll still need to figure out why dirt is getting in the carburetor. I grease both sides of the air cleaner where it attaches so there isn't dirt blowing by the air. It must be, all I can think of is that it's either coming through the air cleaner itself, even though it's oiled, or there's a problem with the airbox. But I did get some silicone and seal up the boot where it meets the airbox. All right. Now I've just got some carburetor cleaner and we'll just spray this out. So if anybody has any ideas on why they think my carburetor, like the slider, would be so sticky, I don't know if it's the motor oil I'm using, but let me know if you've experienced that. I'm using a Motul 2-cycle oil. Some pliers to get this out. There we go. Get that out. see if we can get some of these O-rings off. Oh yeah, that one just broke. Alright. Get this new O-ring on. Alright, we'll put a new gasket in there. Start getting this all put back together. Alright. Put this jet in. Slide that in there. Just push it in. Looks like everything is there. Tighten this up with the 14mm. I think we're all ready to put it back on the bike. Let's see if we can get this slider installed. There we go. Now let's give it a shot. Perfect. Tighten this clamp up. Okay, we are ready to put the airbox on. Let's see if we can get this on. So I had some dust in the airbox, so I used degreaser and cleaned it all up. We should be good now. Then I put a little, take this back out and show you. I put a little bead of silicone around here in case this was the spot that was leaking. Not a lot that holds on this airbox. We'll tighten up the last few bolts on the airbox. Okay, next we need to get this throttle assembly back together. Just 2 bolts that holds this together. There we go, get that all tightened up. I've had a few guys tell me it's not very good, and a number of guys have said to go with this Bel Ray. They said it's way more sticky, if you will. So we're going to try this oil instead on the filter. So all these years I've just put the air cleaner in some sort of plastic bag and then spray it heavily with that PJ1 and just kind of work it in the filter. So I'm not quite sure how much oil to use in this scenario. So we'll figure it out. Hopefully I don't get it too soaked with oil. That was quite a bit, huh? Just work it in. Try to squeeze the excess out down into here. Ooh, yeah, there's a lot in there. So I like to use some of my waterproof grease just around the edge of the airbox here where the air cleaner will meet. And I'll just clean it up when I clean the air cleaner next time. It's pretty simple to take this airbox off and wash it. Doesn't need a whole bunch. I just try to get that edge. So the air cleaner drops in there like that. So this is the lid that goes on top of that air cleaner, and I just kind of go through here, put some grease on that edge. Just a really small inlet for the air cleaner. There we go. Works good now. I think I'll get some fresh gas in the morning and we'll start it up and see how it runs. Alright, I got some fresh fuel this morning. I'm just going to put a splash in. Finish putting it back together, and then I'll take it out for a trail ride and see how it does. Thanks for watching.